Well, today I have another special guest on the show with me. It's my buddy Daniel Smith, and we go way back, and you'll hear a little bit of that in the story. But I really wanted to get a perspective from a volunteer, somebody that's been volunteering in the local church for years. So I think you can get a lot from this episode. So I hope you enjoy. Today, this is something that's excited me for quite some time. Daniel and I go way back, and just case shameless plug here, you got to go check out his show. And if I was to zoom out and show you the setup I have, and then show you his setup, like this is the professional right here. And but I've called and asked him some questions, and so doing the best with what I have because of I'm using his knowledge. But Daniel and I go way back. I don't want to throw any shade, but we were Lynn Sanitied is how we would say it.
Yes.
And if Lynn ever watched this, I'm sorry. I love you, Lynn. But me and my worship band back in the day when we were still super green, we came into a studio, and this is how I met Daniel. Like he was just learning the tricks of the trade, but he was kind of more of the helper in that sense. And hindsight 2020, I wish he would have been the actual producer because the product we got. Anyways, I'm digressing, but that's where this relationship happened. So probably 2010-ish.
Yeah, I'd say 2010.
Yeah,
bro.
and so then it's just been like
Crazy.
Paths crossed and crossed and crossed. We've collaborated on stuff. We've led worship together. I've had his daughter help me lead worship. Man, that was a special time for me a couple years ago. So I was excited to have Daniel on the show today for many reasons. And we want to kind of reminisce some and tell some of our stories. But the main purpose is we were talking a couple weeks ago, and just the role of, so Daniel's unique because he comes from a production background, but yet he volunteers and gives of his time to help in worship contexts from a lot of different ways. Like he's done online worship, like during COVID, they led out in this online worship expression that was done super well. In fact, I was just telling somebody about that the other day. Abner.
Thanks.
Abner was like, I want to record some of he's like trying to write some music. He's like, I would like to record that out on my girlfriend's parents' house. They live out in the country and they have a barn on their property. Yeah. It's like, I have these ideas. I said, you need to talk to Daniel because like they've filmed like in alleyways of downtown, like worship music. Like it's just so the stories could go on and on. But so he has this unique perspective of coming from production and doing that well, but also entering into the worship space. Yeah. And so to start us out, I know I've said his name is Daniel, but like, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, your family? Like, yeah.
Man, so my name is, as you said, Daniel. I have my wife. We've been married for actually over 15 years. Wow. Over 15 years. We met each other when we were 14, which is just wild to just look back on. We got 3 daughters, one that is a senior this year. She's graduating, man.
It's hard to believe.
It's happening.
Whether you like it or not, it's happening.
It's happening. It's a part of it.
Right.
And so, and then we got a 15-year-old, she'll be 16 in December. And then we got a 9-year-old who will be 10 in January.
All girls. All girls. And he still has his hair. So
girl dad. Now it's graying. Starting to gray. But yeah, man. So, I've been involved in music, like you said, pretty much all my life. Starting at 9 years old. And do I look there when I'm doing this part of the talk, or does it matter?
I don't think it matters.
Okay.
Whatever feels comfortable.
So, but 9 years old.
We're talking to God now.
We're here. But 9 years old, I started, got involved in music, whatever. And actually, this is pretty cool. I don't know if I've ever even shared this, but the way I got involved was I was at a relative's house, and they had actually a relative of a relative, and they had a super small, like maybe Casio, I don't remember the
Hmm.
brand, but keyboard. And myself and a cousin of mine was just completely enamored by this thing. Like we were just, wow,
Did
this
you know
this is
how to
amazing.
play?
Not at all.
Okay,
And
okay.
but it I don't and I can't even explain like what that actually was or
Something
how I
drew you.
felt,
Yeah.
but it literally was like,
Hmm.
wow.
Interesting.
And so we left there and that's all I could think about was that
Hmm.
keyboard. And so, of course from 9 I started writing,
Wow.
songs and stuff. I just said this to Cody yesterday today. I had another
Yeah.
podcast.
Yeah.
But I was telling him how I started out as a Christian rapper. A lot of people don't know that.
Ah, what was your name?
Wisdom. Yeah. Yeah,
Ah,
Wisdom,
nice.
man. And but started doing that. And the only reason I was a Christian rapper was because my mom wouldn't let me do anything else. Like that's a true
Real
story.
talk.
True story.
Yeah.
But nonetheless I was.
Right, right.
And so but so I was super excited about that. And really I had never had any plans on like doing what I'm doing now.
Mm,
So like I never planned on per se playing in church in the way that, that
mhm,
it's come to be that. I really was passionate about the behind the scenes
mm,
production. And so just from the start, like writing and,
mhm,
making beats and tracks and stuff, like that's all I really wanted to do. And but it really wasn't even, and a lot of people don't know this, but it wasn't even until um I was grown that I
mm,
actually started playing as an actual musician.
really.
But prior to then, like it was actually everything was just studio,
Mm, mm,
was recording software and, making drum sets in the
mm,
basement out of paint buckets and
mhm,
just all that stuff, man. Like that's all I wanted to do. And I actually started playing in church for the most part at the time as a necessity. And so
okay.
it was just kind of like, and then even like learning to play keys, like I learned to play out of necessity. Like it was just for the means of being able to write songs.
Mm,
But at the time it was just like, I wasn't like, man, I really want to, be a live musician or anything.
mhm.
And so, but yeah, man.
Wow.
So yeah,
That's pretty cool.
yeah,
I didn't know the story about the first experience with a Casio keyboard, like, and just
yes. Shout out to
yeah,
Casio.
shout out to Casio.
Yeah.
One of the things I wanted to ask you is because I think about the time when I re-met you. So like just give some context here. So like the studios when we first met,
Yeah.
and then a few years later happened, and
Yeah.
one of the drummers at my church was a night manager at a gas
Yeah.
station, I
Yeah.
think. And he, he was always like kind of just doing this. And you were delivering papers, right?
Yes.
Come in at like, I don't know, 1, 2 in the morning,
Yeah.
and you notice he's like, so it's like, do you play?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a
Yeah.
natural question to
Yeah.
ask. And so he found out that somehow through that conversation, my name came up. He's like, I know Curtis, and that's I find that happen all the more anymore. There's
Yeah.
like, I don't know who's the Kevin Bacon in this story, but somebody's a Kevin Bacon. There's 6 degrees of separation. And that's true, I think, of all
Yeah.
musicians. And
Yeah.
so then next thing you know, I'm reaching out to Daniel because I'm trying to grow my team, and I'm like, I know Daniel plays, and so um, then he
Yeah.
starts helping me out at my
Yes.
campus, and then they launch a second campus in Edgerton, which is
Yeah.
kind of close to where he was living,
Yeah.
and man, the rest is just
Yeah,
history there.
man.
But when I got reacquainted with you through that time,
Yeah.
you were serving at another church, and you
Mm.
were primarily running sound and
Yeah.
production.
Yeah.
And so I thought this could be an interesting point. It was
Yeah.
like, and we don't have to get in the details of why you were there and not helping on stage. Like that's
Yeah.
not the point, but like then making the transition from production from back of stage or whatever,
Yeah.
front of house to the front of the house. I don't know if
Yeah.
that's the way to say
That's
it, but
good.
anyways,
Yeah, that's
I,
good.
I just think that's interesting. So like how was that? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Very, very it's wild how it worked because it though like prior to that, so I have to go back a little bit.
Mhm.
So I grew up in the church,
Mhm.
all my life, going to church 8 days a week.
Okay. Yeah.
And I did
Yeah.
mean to say 8 days a
Yeah.
week. But the thing is, as a kid, I didn't, I don't have the story of like, man, I just love church. I love to be there.
Mm.
I love to be, and I don't know if it's just because I just didn't because I wasn't involved.
Mhm.
And some of that could be it. A lot of the times when I hear people say they grew up in the church and they loved the experience, it's
Mhm.
because they were actually able to be involved. And so, and
Mhm.
this has just hit me as we
Sure.
sit here.
Yeah.
But I remember that there were other kids at the churches that I was growing up under and in that would play in the church.
Mm.
They play drums, they play keys, and stuff like that. And it's the weirdest thing that I never did.
Mm.
So loved music all this time, but I never got the opportunity to actually be a part of, that experience. And I think so like going ended up going to the church that I was at, running sound. I can't remember how I even got
Hmm.
involved in that part of it. But running sound, it was like there was this honestly, there really was this moment this time to where I'm like, man, like I really wanna be a part, like obviously sound guys are a part of the worship experience.
Right.
But I think for me, what and actually I'll probably speak to this a little bit
Mhm.
today, is that man, like as a worship leader, like know what's in your camp, right? And
Mm.
because this is the thing, it's one thing if you're a sound guy and that's just
Mhm.
what it is that you
Mhm.
do. You don't play any instruments, you don't, that's one thing. But I think when it is something that you do, there is
Mhm.
something that you actually do, man, it's like it'll it'll draw you, you know what I
Mm.
mean? And so,
Mhm.
like, and not even like, bro, I could have been behind the curtain backstage,
Mhm. Mhm.
playing, keys, like, and if you know me and everybody else know me,
Mhm.
I mean, I've been in Edgerton playing, I'm, like, you know, on the back of the stage.
Right, right.
I'm a short guy, so I ain't like, bro, I'm not there, for
Right,
any other
right.
reason but just to be able to be a part.
Mhm.
And so, but like, just like I said, just thinking back how, man, like, I almost feel like there was a missed opportunity,
Mm. Mhm.
just as a whole to be able
Sure.
to pick that up
Yeah.
as a kid, to be able to, because all my uncles are musicians.
Yeah.
So like, dude, I got, I mean, like
Wow.
musicians, top of the
Mm.
food
Mm.
chain, guitarists, bass guitarists, keys, like
Mhm.
drums, all that. So yeah.
Yeah. I bet family reunions are awesome. I think I've seen
Listen,
some of those videos too of you
listen,
guys jamming.
break out in
Uh-huh.
song, like, break out in song over some cake tasting good,
Nice. Yeah.
full out
Tasting
song,
good. Yeah.
quartets and
Dude,
yeah,
that's awesome.
yeah,
Yeah, I
so
just think that's interesting. Thanks for sharing that, like, kind of like that dynamic of transitioning, and it sounds like it was like there was more pulling at you,
yeah,
like not that because you viewed what you do and you do view what you do and you're that's what a side note here. I want to say people that run sound, like there's this misconception of they're not part of the team,
mhm,
so much so like, sometimes they don't come to rehearsals and they're just like, "I will just wing it,"
yeah,
whatever. Whereas I encourage people all the time, like if you are running sound like
mm,
that, you have the literally the biggest
yeah,
instrument
bro,
part of the band,
bro,
and it's probably the most crucial
yeah,
because it doesn't matter if you have the best guitar player, singer, preacher, what have you. If you're not EQing properly, mixing properly, like that's
listen,
not a good experience for anybody.
listen,
So
bad sound,
yeah,
listen, bad sound.
yeah, yeah, no good.
I'm serious, I'll take a church full of terrible musicians,
Mm,
um, and good sound, like,
mhm,
any day.
mhm.
Terrible musicians
Yeah,
and good sound,
it's
you
important.
know?
It's important.
Hey, so
Um, so like kind of the meat of today, like I want to kind of let you do some more talking, but as we were talking a couple weeks ago and this the dynamics of volunteers and man, like and I've been saying this a lot in my shows and so I want to insert it here.
Mm.
anything that's shared today is held with honor and honesty. And so I don't know if you've heard me say this, but honor and honesty is sort of like truth and grace.
Yeah.
And Jesus modeled it both. But like I've found growing up in my settings and my context that sometimes we become black and white thinking with that. We're either
Mhm.
one or the other. And so what
Yeah.
happens, we want to honor somebody. So maybe this is how it plays out. Well, Sister Sally can't carry a tune in the bucket, but we don't like she's sang at this church for years.
Yeah.
So it would be dishonoring to have that conversation with her and say, "Hey, I don't think this is working out." So that's how honor,
Yeah.
just a silly way, but that's how honor can get elevated. Honesty would be sometimes it becomes brutally honest with somebody where you just like you speak the truth but it's not in love, but because you're
Yeah.
like I'm being truthful, and you're damaging. And so
Yeah.
why I bring that up is
That's good.
anything of our conversation today, like because we were talking, and we won't unpack all this, but we were talking about just the tensions of being at bigger multi-campus churches where the brand is there for
Mhm.
like it or you don't like it.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, sometimes there's this brand that there's this tension of, man, how do we wrestle with that? And the reason I bring that up is because, like, as a volunteer that gives of your time, you don't get paid
Yeah.
to show up and serve. Um, so to struggle with that tension of like, man, am I feeling valued here? You
Mhm.
know, like
Yeah.
and so I've titled today like the things that what volunteers wish their worship leaders
Yes.
knew. And so like
Yeah.
you are one of the most tried and true volunteers that I've ever had to work with.
Mhm.
And like you
Yeah.
bring an excellence to it. And so like just walk us through like some things that come to mind that you wish that worship leaders knew for their
Yeah.
volunteers.
That's good. So I'm gonna give you the spiritual
Mm,
part of that, but
okay.
I'll also give you the
Good.
practical
Yeah.
part of that. I'd say first spiritually, I would say man, like as a volunteer, and this is like, honestly, I've been super blessed. So
Mm,
I'll say that to start out with. I've been super blessed because I ran alongside with Pete
shout out
for
Pete.
I mean years
Yeah.
and years.
Yeah.
And so I was
Good
very
dude.
blessed in the
Yeah.
sense of spiritually speaking. And I think because of that, it's like I'm
Mm,
more aware now of it. So for
mm-hmm.
instance, case in point, Pete is way more like gifted on the prophetic side,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not at all. And so for me, to have somebody like him around me, and to be able to be, to be able to be, I mean, essentially shepherd.
Right.
And he probably wouldn't even necessarily even look at it like
Mm,
that, but I was shepherd. I've been
mm-hmm.
shepherd by him.
Mm-hmm.
But because of that, it's like now when I walk into a space of worship, I'm not, my grandpa used to always say, don't go to church inspecting, but go expecting.
That's
And so
good.
I'm not,
That's good.
I'm not inspecting,
Mhm.
but I cannot help now my discernment is higher
Mm.
from like for that spiritually speaking. So as
Mhm.
far as man are so from a volunteer, spiritually first is the thing. Like when we talk about
Mhm.
worship,
Mhm.
like as a worship leader, man, like if you are not sitting before the Lord, I
Mm.
promise you, like
Mhm.
you are absolutely completely like missing and actually in a position of where the people that your volunteers is there because like you said
Mhm.
we ain't getting paid,
Mhm.
man, it sucks. Like
Mhm.
it straight out sucks. Like
Mm.
the experience makes you feel like, dude, I might as well be getting paid because this feels like a job.
Right.
Because it's like I get this at, if I go
Mm.
work out at the Quick Trip or if I go work at
Mhm.
Walmart, like this is
Mhm.
what my managers are
Mm.
like.
Mm.
But so coming into the church, it has to be a different
Yeah.
approach to it. There has to be an approach to it to where you really are leading, from a place of like humility before God, like,
Mm.
as much as possible. Obviously, you're not gonna, you know,
Mm.
not gonna be perfect in that,
Right.
but that should be the hugest part of it. I remember, I'll say this real quick. I remember there was times to where, and even now, like, because I'm not. like, I'm not that guy that's just like, man, I'm gonna spend, 48 hours straight, you know what I mean? Just, laid out before the
Right,
Lord.
right.
Naturally, that's not like the way that I'm wired, but Pete is.
Mm,
He gets, filled
mhm,
up from that. And
mhm.
so, I mean, there's times to where like it's like, bro, like it's Sunday morning, man, we need to practice these songs. And Pete's like, man, like let's pray. You know what
Mhm,
I mean?
mhm,
And so like, bro, we spend, a good amount of time praying.
mm.
And I will tell you, I'm serious. Every single time, listen to me. Every single time it went great. Like
Mm,
every single time it went great when prayer was the head of all of it. Like
mm,
forget about, all right, we got to make sure we, hit the right chord or right.
right.
And of course, we had services that was rough. But the funny thing is that those ones that were rough, that was what was leading,
Mm,
was, the musicianship of
mm.
everything. And
Interesting,
so,
yeah.
yeah,
It's
man.
a good
So
point.
that's one of them.
Yeah.
There's plenty. So practically,
Mhm.
and I mean, I'll have, man, there's all kinds of
Sure,
them.
yeah.
But practically, so I said spiritually, but on that same thing as spiritually, that shepherd part
Mm,
has to be. If you're not a shepherd, and I'll look to y'all, if you're
mm,
not a shepherd as a worship leader, you
mm,
need to absolutely highlight, surround yourself with somebody
mm.
on your team that is a shepherd. Because I cannot tell you as a volunteer, it's super important for us, to
Mm.
be shepherd as well. And like I said,
I'm gonna pause you there
yeah.
really quick. Like, I had an episode a few weeks ago of how a worship team can benefit from an org chart, and it sounds
Mm,
very like it's not gotten a lot of views, and so maybe I should have worded it something else. But my point in that was, even as a worship leader at a small church, and maybe you're part time and you're not getting paid much, and you
mm,
have another job, like the tendency is we feel the pressure to wear all the hats.
yeah.
And I go through like the 5 or 6 different areas of leadership. There's technical leadership, there's pastoral leadership, there's administrative. That's just to name a few. And
Mhm.
so what he just said is so good, is like, we don't typically, it's kind of like the we were talking about the working genius, like we all have a
Yeah.
couple geniuses. It reminds me a little bit like that. It's okay if you don't have the shepherd. It's like the
Yeah.
apest as well. We could
Yeah.
talk about whatever. Like maybe the pastoral part of the apest isn't strong in you. You have it
Yeah.
because we have the
Yeah.
the power of Christ, and so we have it all.
Yeah.
But typically, so if we're not good in that area, like the tendency is like, well, but I'm the worship leader, I'm the staff person, I need to be great at it all. I
Mhm.
want to debunk that. Is
Yeah.
like,
Absolutely.
find the people on your team. And I tried to do that at my previous church. Is like, I had volunteers as well, but I looked at the people around me. I said, this person I think would be great at shepherding the people,
Yeah.
and empower them
Yeah.
to do it. So
Yeah.
anyways, carry
No, that's
on, but I
good.
wanted to say
So
that. Yeah.
even on top of that, like you saying, man, like don't fake it either. Like
Yeah. People
I
know when you fake it
there's
too.
a lot of stuff that you can fake it in life, but I'm telling you
Mhm.
there's something that really comes through when you as a person that don't have that gifting in that way. It's not your lead gifting.
Mhm.
And that's why I say surround yourself with people
Yeah.
that do and submit to them in
Yeah.
that. But don't fake it because it'll be completely apparent. And
Mhm.
actually it's worse
Yeah.
than so like there's nothing worse than a person that absolutely isn't a shepherd to try to fake being a
Mm.
shepherd. Like
Mhm.
it comes across very um man, it comes across as like super cheap for one thing,
Mhm.
but it also comes across as just disingenuous. Like it
Mhm.
you
It
could
does.
sense it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so surround yourself,
That's
submit
good.
yourself to those people
That's
that you
good.
surround yourself with
That's good.
because you'll pick it up. Like you start
Mhm.
to pick up shepherding.
Mhm.
And like I said, because even though that ain't naturally what I am, running with Pete, like it's been a huge thing that's taught me that well. And even with Casey Carter, like I've learned, a lot of that too, man.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
So surround yourself with shepherd. I like how you said surround yourself and submit yourself to like the shepherding people in your lives. What are some other
Practical.
what? Yeah,
Practical.
yeah, you plan that too.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, so what are some other things, like there's some spiritual components, and I think you've touched on some of the practical, but like what's some other um what are some other things that you
What
feel
you do?
like is important to know from a volunteer's
Yeah.
perspective?
Man, I got some stuff. So,
Yeah. And
uh,
you can share whatever because
yeah. So I'd say, man, there's a few. So one would be, man, know and recognize that your volunteer is a volunteer.
Mhm.
But even though they're a volunteer, they wouldn't do it if they didn't want to do it, for one thing.
Mhm.
And the main reason I would say that most of any volunteer would wanna do it is because it's an opportunity for them to be able to be creative. And so
Mm.
and we had this conversation a little
Yes,
bit.
yes.
I would say, to be real with you, one of the things that has helped me over the, because I mean, I'm what, over 10 years of,
Mm.
of a volunteer,
Right? Yeah.
for, and this is the cool thing about it, for something that I actually used to previously get paid to do, in the sense of music. I used to get
Right,
paid
right.
for music.
Mhm. Mhm.
But have, been a volunteer musically
Sure.
for over 10 years. And but the thing that has helped me big time within it to not feel like this burnout and stuff like that
Mm.
is being able to be creative, bro. Like
Mm.
Pete did very, very good at allowing the people in the team to be able to be creative.
Mm.
Basically meaning, obviously, and we had this talk. You can't have a person that, for instance, a drummer that just wants to do every feel that they've ever learned since they was 3 years old
We all
in
have known
every
that drummer
song.
too.
Yeah, that's not a good thing, right? That ain't the creative I'm talking about.
Right.
Or the guitarist who,
Mm.
for whatever reason, he always wants to add Stairway to Heaven, just for his solo, on it or
Oh
whatever.
my.
Like, you don't, not that creative.
Right.
I'm saying creatively meaning that, okay, I know that this is what they played on the song.
Mhm.
Man, if are you in key? Are you on time? And does it actually serve the song well? That's literally like, when,
That's yeah.
as a worship leader, when you
Mhm.
allow your musicians to do that, because most
Mm.
of us anyhow, I mean, you have people, there's plenty of us, period, musicians. And
Mhm.
so most of us, we if we have regular jobs, businesses, whatever, and we don't make money from music, it really is a great opportunity for us to be able to not feel like it's work, because it
Yeah.
really
Right.
feels like it's work
Yeah.
when it's like, okay, they played, this is exactly what they played in the song. It's like,
Mhm.
I cannot tell you
Mm.
how terrible, as a musician, as it feel to have to like do that. But
Mm.
if I could come in and, you know what I mean? And like, I know that they did this, but I feel
Right.
like this fits well, not even
Yeah.
better, but
Yeah.
I feel like this fits well. Then it gives that, like, man, this isn't just, AI, bro. Like, it doesn't feel
Right.
AI-ish, dude,
Right.
And so I think that's probably one of my biggest things practically,
Mm.
that I believe that worship leaders absolutely gotta pick up, is allow your volunteers to be creative,
Mm.
because God created them to be creative. And listen,
Yeah. I'm glad you took it there because that's what I was gonna ask.
it's it's gonna be a way better, way more authentic, because I'm telling you, bro, like, there's something about getting a chance to, like, especially because we're not doing original songs.
Mm.
And so if we're not doing original songs, bro, like, the best thing that you can allow, or the closest thing to it, is to allow them to be creative in that way.
Mm.
And so, no,
You mean people don't just want the radio played in church?
not at all,
Oh,
man.
and
Just play
man,
the song.
yeah,
Just play the
just
song.
play the song. So, like, you said a lot there, and again, whatever I feel is too much, I can take out,
Yep.
and I may not even go in all the directions, but serving a song and being creative, like, I wanted to kind of get your thoughts, and there's no right or wrong, but I'm really genuinely interested in your thoughts on this because I have had pushback, in some of the teams I've led, and I've had to learn what you
Mm.
said. Like I've not always done it well. I know that's a shock to all you guys. You thought that I've just always been the perfect worship leader, but I haven't. Like in fact, I kind of severed a relationship. My buddy Brian, like for there was a couple years where the relationship kind of got severed for many different reasons, but one of the reasons I think had to do with I had become very businesslike when
Mm.
it came to worship leading, and not everything that I did I feel was wrong, but it was very overly structured at times, um, not allowing. And as I stepped back and reflected, I was squelching creativity in Brian, you know. And so we had a great conversation a couple years ago over coffee, and like we reconnected, and he's part of my team again. And so but like
Mm.
so I've learned, and another case in point is Abner, who's a young kid on my team, and just super talented, plays all the instruments kind of like
Mm.
you. And he would rearrange songs.
Yeah.
And there was a part when a part of time when I was kind of like putting the reins, holding the reins back on that, because I'm like, man, that song is unrecognizable now. But then I started to observe, and
Yeah.
context is key too. Where you're
Mhm.
leading is
Yep.
key.
Yep.
And he was leading at a multicultural college campus, and they loved it.
Yep.
And so I was like, you know what? I'm not that creative in that way.
Mhm.
So let him loose, because it's an overflow of his spiritual gift is what it
Yeah.
is, you
Yep.
know. So I
Yep.
wanted to specifically ask, what's your view on tracks? Like, do they
Why
get
are you
too
asking this
I
question
know.
with me here?
I know.
Like, I ain't even gonna lie to you. It's funny. This is the equivalent of like the Christian version, the church world of I mean, what could I even compare it to? This is a
It is. Yeah,
hot
it is.
controversial.
It
And
is.
honestly, I'm happy to share it. Like,
Yeah.
so I I I don't have any problem with anybody using tracks.
Mhm.
But I don't like I'm
Right.
pretty much if I'm leading, I'm not I'm anti-tracks.
Yeah, yeah.
And I know that sounds like I said, it sounds extreme, but I'll give reasons why.
Sure, yeah.
So my main reason why is because it's similar to what I mean by the whole like if you want to hear the song,
Right.
do
And
this,
that's what I was, yep.
play the song.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, I also feel like I don't know why it is, but there is a part of me that, and Pete's the same way, man. Like, and we've been this same way, but it's hard for me to to it's hard for me to like reconcile hearing something in the room and not seeing a person actually do it. Like it's
Mm.
hard for me.
Yeah, yeah, that
And
makes
it's funny
sense.
because
Mhm.
I come from the studio world. So and more
Sure.
in fact, I come from the hip hop world. And so
Mhm.
and if you would, if you go to a hip hop concert, 20 years ago, whatever,
Right.
whatever, you never see no live musicians, like, ever.
Right.
Like, it's
Right.
literally all just one track,
Right.
not tracks,
Right.
but one track,
Yeah.
and so I come from that world, but, like, man, there's something that if you see a person on the stage, and you're hearing something, and what I'll say is, because
Mhm.
as I'm saying that, I'm thinking about there are certain things. So,
Sure,
for
yeah.
instance, pads, like, okay,
Mhm.
it's pads,
Mhm.
even some strings,
Mhm.
here and there. But man, it's hard for me to like, and then I would also say this, even with like processed, sampled bass, like drums and stuff,
Mhm.
that there's no way you're going to be able to create that with whatever you
Oh,
have
right.
naturally.
Mhm.
But even then, if you can get you a drum pad, like
Mm.
let me see somebody hitting that thing
Mm.
to where it may go off time. Like,
Mhm.
and like I said, it's mainly because I feel like worship is such a
Mm.
personal, emotional
That's good.
thing. And
Mhm.
so for me, it's
Mhm.
difficult to like, you know what I mean? To
Mhm.
like to have somebody with like the backtracks
Mhm.
in there. And then one last thing is I find it so hard to believe, and this is a hit at all of us.
Right,
I
right.
find it so hard to believe that God hasn't created us
Mm.
musicians to be able to come up with original stuff. And
Yeah.
I feel like it literally is, unfortunately,
Mm.
it's just because we just don't. Like, it
Mhm.
ain't because we
Mhm.
can't. It ain't
Mhm.
because we don't know how. Like, we know how.
Right.
We're just not doing it. And I think that the culture of tracks, I honestly feel like it continues to like give you an excuse pretty much to not like go ahead and do original stuff. Like,
Yeah.
if I had it, if it was my way at some point, if I quit being a hypocrite, then literally 90, I ain't gonna say 90, but I would say a good 75%
Mm.
seriously would be like, we would be, hey, it's original stuff.
Mm.
And then of course we're still doing stuff. But God created too many
Mm.
of us, bro, to not be able to be unique and creative. And
Right.
there's songs in us, dude, that
Yeah.
can do whatever those songs have done. It's
Yeah.
just that we're not,
Yeah.
we're not doing it.
Well, Peter, a couple weeks ago, I had Peter Assad on, which you've had
Yes,
him on your
love
show,
Peter, man.
man, and he said something really good. You could tell, like, and they're doing a great job of like cultivating like original songs at their
Yeah,
church.
yes,
And he
yes.
said, man,
He's right,
nothing
man.
against Hillsong songs, but if you like Hillsong, go to Hillsong. I was like, wow, okay. Like, I mean, that's a valid point. He said we don't expect preachers to preach the same sermons, and this is hard for me to say because
Come on.
it steps on my toes a
Yep.
lot because
S
I don't give space for it, and
Step on
I
them.
have it. I have it in me as well, but I'm not giving space for that. And so
Yeah.
I think I'm glad you shared that because
Yeah,
it's,
man.
we if we're truly pastoring our people like you talked about earlier, then we have a pulse of what our congregation needs.
Yeah.
And so doesn't mean that there's not great songs out there doing that, but wouldn't it be the better steward to not only flex the creativity that's from the Lord,
Yeah.
but to speak directly
Yes.
to our
Yes.
congregation?
Yes. The
Yeah.
heart of your
Yeah.
congregation has a beat to it, bro.
Mm.
Like, if no matter where you go within that church, like, obviously there's the culture of us as believers. There's things that we share just across the board,
Mhm.
but just as on a local level, man, like, each church has its own culture. And it's like, man, like, why would we not? I don't get it. Like,
Mm.
why would we? I guess I get it. I think there's a bit of there's fear there, and we
Mm.
may not want to
Right.
admit that, but there's
Right.
fear that, well, they're not, people don't know these songs. Well, they don't know 'em because you ain't playing them. It's like, bro, the only
Right.
reason why, I promise you, the
Mhm.
only reason why the songs that we do them is because they did them.
Mhm.
And it's like, man, when do we get to a point to where we start to, like you said, pull that out of the
Mm.
people, Abner, like,
Mhm.
just, it's like,
Mhm.
just think about it. It's
Mhm.
like, if Abner never got the opportunity to sit up under and to be able to, have somebody like yourself to be able to shepherd them and like be able to say, hey, be creative, you know what
Mhm.
I mean? Like,
Mhm.
write your songs.
Mhm.
Like, just think about Abner, and then, like I said, yourself, like, dude, you've written some songs. I don't care what anybody say. Like, the songs are just as solid, just
Mm.
as creative, just as good as anything out there. It's just that taking that time for us to get to where we're taking it serious.
Mm.
That's all that they're doing, bro.
Mhm.
They're like, you know what I mean? They're taking
Mhm.
it serious.
Right.
And it's like, they're putting together the team to, you got 5 writers in the room.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
you got 5 writers in the room. You got tons of musicians, and like, we we could do the same thing. Like, why do we not?
Mm.
And I'll shout out real quick, shout
Mhm.
out to Peter Assad, bro. Peter
Mhm.
Assad is
Yeah.
killing it.
Oh, yeah.
Like, in that sense, I
Yeah.
cannot tell you how encouraged I've been. And I don't even think I've told him this,
Mm.
but so encouraged by, bro, like, the dude is putting out songs
Yeah.
left and
Yeah.
right. Nobody's doing that locally.
Yeah.
And so, and like I said, like, for me, to see him, dude, he's driving to Nashville to like
Mhm.
record. Now, I will say this to Peter. Peter, if you're
Yeah,
listening,
that's right. Yeah. I know a guy.
just the same, well, this is the thing. Just the same way that I believe that we're all capable
Mm.
of writing original songs, bro, like, we have
Mm.
super talent like talented producers, audio engineer. And I'm serious. I'm not
Right.
saying like me. I'm
Right.
literally saying like, bro, locally, this is
Mm.
stuff that he shouldn't have to drive to Nashville.
Mhm.
Like we shouldn't have anybody
Right.
locally that have to go somewhere
Yeah.
else
Yeah.
to like create original stuff that sounds amazing. You know what I mean?
Right. Right.
It's like, come on, man.
Yeah.
We gotta do better. Uh,
Man, that's good.
yeah.
And that's convicting, good and convicting because I know I don't give enough space to that for sure.
To yourself too, though,
Oh, you're
bro. Like
right.
seriously. It's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
bro, people want to hear your songs.
Mm.
Like seriously. People
Mhm.
want to hear your songs.
Um, man, so we can kind of start to land the plane, and if you have anything else you want to share too, but like, what is a song like? And now I'm hesitant. Should I ask this based on what we're saying? But what is
No.
a song that is tracking well? Now it's kind of interesting because you kind of are helping a couple different campuses out
Yeah.
in large. So
Yeah.
I don't know if you
Oh,
want
that's
to.
good.
Yeah.
That's
So
good.
what's a song that's tracking well at either or both?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's good, dude. Dang. Okay, so I say for Edgerton, which I call ourselves the country
Mm.
cousins.
Country Cousins.
But Edgerton, I would say Holy God.
Mm,
It's just that's man, I don't I don't know why, and I'm getting it's weird. Like, bro, I'm
mm,
not an emotional guy,
mm,
but it gets me emotional. Only a holy God.
mm.
That's just every time. Like
Is that
it's
Here Be
once
Lions or what's the guy?
that's
He's a local guy, I think, that wrote it.
I don't
Dustin
know.
Smith, is it?
I don't know. It could have been cry out. Only a holy
Yeah,
God. Is he local?
I think so. I
Bro,
can look
if
that up
that's
off,
true,
but yeah,
I'm about
yeah,
to
he
call
doesn't
him.
live here locally now, but I
Yeah,
think he was
well,
from one of the.
that is amazing
Yeah,
if so. So that song for Edgerton has just been huge.
wow.
And I just every time it's one of those songs that I just don't get tired of. You know what I mean? You know
Yeah,
how sometimes you get
yeah,
tired of
yeah.
like, can we do another
Yeah, I
one?
mean, you guys are playing the songs. You musicians will get tired of the songs long before the
Yeah.
audience or
Like,
congregation, not
yeah.
audience, Jesus.
Can we do a
Um,
different song?
so yeah.
But that's not one of them,
Mm,
man. And guilty enough. Like,
mm,
and it doesn't even matter who's leading it either.
right.
Seriously. Because this past Sunday, Caleb led it. But usually my daughter,
Oh,
Elissa,
cool.
she
Yeah,
leads it, and I just
that's awesome.
but for Olathe, man, um, what song is it? I had it on the tip of my tongue. It's I thank God.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
yeah.
I thank
That
God.
resonates well here too. The
Yeah,
little kids
man.
come out dancing. Yeah. Yeah.
That
Yeah.
it's so funny because I think seasonally as the church, um, it's almost like a Christmas gift when when there is a new song that hits the scene
Mhm.
that really does like
Right.
cut through. And that's one of them, man. Like, and I think just being in coming out of the season that just
Mm.
all of us have been kind of coming out of or been in, as
Mhm.
far as just so much melancholy and
Mm.
just so much, you
Mm.
know what I mean, like
Mhm.
sorrow and grief. It's just a breath of fresh air to like have a song like I Thank God. It's
Yeah.
just, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just like, hey, let's party.
Yeah.
The house is burning down. You know what I mean? The building is crushing before us. There's,
Right.
earthquakes everywhere. You know what I mean? They just died. Like, but like, hey, we celebrating. That's for
Yeah.
me. That's like,
That's
that's
good.
where I want to continue to
Yeah.
end up in. You know.
Yeah. From
So.
now till I walk the streets of gold, I'll sing how you saved my soul. This wayward son has found his way back home. Yeah. That's good. And why I hesitated to ask those questions
Ooh,
because don't hear us saying
goodness.
that there's no good songs out there
Yeah,
and we
not at
should
all.
only sing originals, but I'm
Mhm.
hoping you're hearing that is the weaker. We've got to flex that muscle more is
Yeah.
the original song. So I don't have this in my notes, but is there original song that you are writing that you want to take to your church?
Yeah, that's wild. So that's a great question. Unfortunately, there's nothing.
Right.
No, man. So where I'm at currently, and this is crazy, and that's why I said this is a toe step personally as
Oh,
well.
sure. Yeah.
Is that man, like so Pete and I were in the process,
Mm.
or have been in the process of putting together a project called uh it's called Pictures for Abba. So
Ah,
Pictures for Abba. And
nice.
so the whole premise behind it all
Uh-huh.
is basically like in life we do all, and it doesn't even have to be music, but
Mhm.
we do all of these things with what God has given us, whatever giftings he's given us,
Mhm.
and we do them to the best of our ability,
Mhm.
and to him, because he is so amazing, he is so glorious. It 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 actually come across as when our little 2-year-old, our 3-year-old, 4-year-old draws a picture and give
Mm.
it to us of something, and it's like this is the best that they can do,
Wow.
and we just, you know what I mean? It's like,
Mhm.
wow,
Put that on the fridge.
yeah,
Yeah.
like, I could see that that's a cat
Mm.
somehow, you know what I mean? And wow, good
Yeah,
job,
yeah.
you know? But that's the whole
Mm.
premise behind it. Like,
That's
all right, we
awesome.
wanted to get together and put together a group of songs, a
Mm.
collection of songs, that is that. So
Mm.
like there's no the one theme that goes through it all is home. So like there's this,
Mm. Home.
picture top, so home. So every single song has
Hmm.
some type of reference
Hmm.
to some degree of like home or just going home, like all that.
So,
And yeah,
th
but all of them
probably
sound different.
I'll probably cut this out, but so I have a song that I started writing with Daniel,
Don't cut it out.
Daniel Doss, that guy that I'm kinda
Yes.
awestruck with, and I've dropped the ball and not reconnecting with him, but
Yeah.
it's kind of unfinished, but
Yeah,
home is where
man.
the heart is. Yeah, like, and so
Yeah, did y'all start that day of the
yeah,
yeah,
that
bro,
that's
and
where it
that was
started,
good.
and
Like,
it needs to be
yeah,
finished because I think, man,
goodness.
he wrote an amazing chorus there,
Yeah,
and
my
then the bridge is
goodness.
like, "You keep serving up grace and mercy brand new every morning."
Don't
Like,
even
so
look, listen to me.
we gotta
I'm
finish
I'm
it.
sorry, man. I'm
Gotta
sorry,
finish
y'all. I
it.
gotta get on to him real quick.
I know.
Like, I promise you, so that song, this is what I'm talking about.
Mhm.
Like, I'm not even
I
joking.
know.
I literally like, cause I'm really a fan of music.
Yeah.
I really literally want to hear that song. So
Mm.
even though,
Mm.
I was there when,
Right.
the writing stuff and like getting a chance to hear what it was,
Yeah.
like I want that song to be released. And this
Yeah.
is the
Yeah.
thing. How awesome would it be for us to be able to sing
Yeah.
that song? Like, you know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Yeah.
Even this is the thing, even if it ain't even released
Right.
officially, it's like, bro, like that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
That song to
Yeah.
me, it's like, man, I need to be able to sing that. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I need to
Yeah.
be able to play along to that. Like I need that to happen, bro.
Yeah.
Got it. Come on,
All
man.
right. So, okay, I got some accountability
Come
here.
on, man. Yes.
um, what is? I mean, and you, I don't know if you're a big reader like me, and it's fine if you're not. But this is
Yeah.
again questions I like to ask for those that of us that are readers. Is there a book that you've just read or currently reading
Yeah.
other than the Bible? Because that's the best book. But that you want
Yeah.
to share
Yeah.
with us?
Dude, so the way that I read, so there's Bible, there's tons of like entrepreneurial books,
Yeah, that's good.
business books.
Yeah.
And then there's this book I've been reading. Dang, what's the name of that thing, man? Um Business wise, there's a book called Renegade Marketing, and I think
Okay. I
it
think I've heard of that.
translates well just in general.
Okay.
But the main premise of it is it says dare to be distinct.
Uh,
And so that's a lot of what like
yeah.
where I'm at just in what I talk about in general is this idea that I just believe so strongly that because God created us uniquely, bro. Like he created
Mm.
us uniquely, it is a I would say it literally is a complete, slap, so to speak, for us to not actually, like, be distinct. So,
Mm.
like, and that's in everything. So, like, I don't
That's
want
good.
Curtis to come and sing. I don't mind Curtis singing the Hillsong song.
Mhm.
I just don't wanna hear Curtis sound like the
Mm.
Hillsong guy.
Right.
Like, it's like I wanna
Right.
hear Curtis deliver it the way that Curtis is gonna
Yeah.
deliver it.
Mm.
Like, I don't wanna hear the same run. You know what I mean? What run is Curtis gonna do?
Mhm.
And so, But that book, bro, like,
Hmm.
has just been huge for
That's
me,
good.
renegade marketing,
Okay.
and just basically not even necessarily going against the grain,
Yeah.
but just for real going basically off of the uniqueness that that
Yeah.
God's created you to have,
Yeah.
you know?
Man,
So,
so yeah, I'll put that in the notes for sure, the
yeah,
description.
renegade
Last
marketing.
question here, is there an app that
Oh,
like and maybe there's too many to share, but
yeah,
like what's an app that is like transforming your
man.
world right now?
Imma give you 2, I have
Okay.
to.
All right.
One is, and I cannot tell you, to me, this is the coolest app, just period, and you have to go get this, if you don't have it.
Mhm.
It is called, what is it called? It's, I got it right here sitting on my, because I use it daily. It is Chord AI. Listen
Oh,
to me.
okay.
So, and this is
Okay.
the wild thing, I started using it over a year ago. I started using it before, you know, I the AI thing
Uh-huh.
really kicked
Right.
off the way that it is. But man, and so I never even paid attention to where it said AI.
Uh-huh.
But and I can't remember how I found this app, but dude, this app is so amazing. So like you could pull up files in import files from
Okay.
your media library, your files
Uh-huh.
from your phone, your YouTube, or you could just record directly on here. So it has a little
Okay.
microphone.
Uh-huh.
You hit that, and literally, like when I tell you the accuracy of this, so what it does is I could just, let's just say I'm here and we're writing a song and I'm not, like some freak of nature and can tell like that's this chord.
Right.
Like, all I have to do is hold the mic up towards it, and it'll tell
Really?
me
Oh,
exactly what
wow.
that chord is.
Wow.
And so you could play that progression just sitting right here,
Hmm.
and boom, like it shows me the chords, but it gives me the option for guitar. It gives you all
Oh,
of the
wow.
different options of those chords, and then it gives you all the options on keys as
Oh
well.
my.
And,
Wow.
yeah, and
That's
so
pretty
it does
amazing.
it, but you could do that with YouTube too. So
Okay.
if there's a song on YouTube
Yeah.
and you don't have a chart for it yet, all you have to do is pull that up in here
Wow.
and you'll get
Yeah, that's
to,
a game
like,
changer for sure.
apps. And so, bro, you could speed it up, you could
Oh,
slow it
wow.
down, you could put a capo on it
Oh
so it'll
my.
show you what the
Oh
chords
my.
are if you got a
Dude.
capo. I'll show you when we get off here.
Yeah.
But that app is my favorite, Chord
Okay.
AI.
Chord
And
AI.
then even if you ain't a even if you don't play an instrument,
Mhm.
it's super helpful.
Mhm.
But and then Moises.
Moises. Okay.
Very weird word, Moises.
Uh-huh.
Moises.
Okay.
I found this from a guy touring bassist maybe a couple years ago, or whatever. But it's super cool. So you get in there, and you're able to isolate whatever is on the song. So
Oh,
like,
really?
yeah, so I could pull up a song from YouTube, put it
Uh-huh.
in there, and then you could turn down the bass
Oh
and turn
my.
down the guitars or whatever,
Can you
and
then
just hear the
export
vocals.
that?
Yeah.
Oh
Just
my.
hear, just look at, just hear the
Okay. This
vocals,
could help.
or you could
Yeah.
turn down the music, hear the
Wow.
drums, and it's great for it's very, very good for if you're trying to learn a part,
That's what I was
or if
thinking.
you
Yeah.
wanting to try to, you're like, "Hey, I wanna get the drummer to," you know what I mean, to
Yeah.
learn close to
That's
what
where I
this is,
yeah.
then boom,
My
pull it up in
goodness.
there, and yeah, man.
Sounds
So,
like witchcraft.
yeah, I'm telling you, that's what I said about that. It's crazy, bro, like, how did they do it?
Right.
Moises.
Moises.
Yeah,
All
Moises
right.
and Chord AI.
Dude, that's awesome. Well, Daniel, man, thanks for just thanks for the many years that we've had and like thanks for convicting me today of the I need toes stepped on because like
Ouch.
we are created from a creative God and
Yep.
so why wouldn't we create because it's in our DNA.
Yep.
So and there's many ways to do that, but by
Yep.
like we have so thanks for kind of convicting me of that and thanks for sharing that perspective because I think volunteers man if we're not careful we are leading if we're a leader of volunteers we're leading them like a business sometimes
Yeah.
and
Yep.
employees and man then we
And they already
wonder
have that. They
right
get paid for
right
that.
right so
They get money for that.
and then we wonder why we can't get them to show up and help
Yeah.
us anymore yeah
Yeah.
so
'Cause it sucks. So,
right. So,
shoot.
man, thanks for your insight on that. I think it's
Yeah.
super helpful. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I hope you got some takeaways from that episode and learned a lot. And just, I love the heart that Daniel has for ministry and to serve and to give of his time and his talents. And so, one thing I failed to do, and I alluded to it, and then I forgot to ask him and forgot to circle back when I had him on. But if you would like to check him out, you can go to Righteous Image Media and book him for any of your media needs, whether that's video editing or wedding photography. Man, he does such a great job. And so check that out. God bless. Have a good rest of your week.